Christian Horner's departure from Red Bull Racing after more than 20 years at the helm represented much more than a simple change of leadership. It was a seismic shift capable of transforming the entire dynamic of Formula One. Is the man responsible for turning a team in crisis into one of the greatest forces in the sport about to take charge at Ferrari? More importantly, could this change finally give Scuderia what it needs to return to the top after almost 20 years without a world championship? Horner's departure last Wednesday took the paddock completely by surprise. After 2 decades building a dynasty at Red Bull, winning 8 drivers' championships, 6 constructors' championships, and 124 race wins, the Englishman was simply dismissed without any official explanation. His departure marks the end of an era and the beginning of a fierce battle between teams to recruit the second most successful team principal in Formula One history, surpassed only by Ron Dennis. But let's take a closer look at the context of this story. When Horner took the reins at Red Bull in 2005, at just 31 years old, many questioned his competence. The team was essentially the old Jaguar team remodeled, with limited resources and no winning tradition. The young Brit not only proved himself ready for the challenge, but also built a dynasty that ruled the category for years. The Sebastian Vettel era, with 4 consecutive championships between 2010 and 2013, was just the beginning of a journey that would culminate in Max Verstappen's total supremacy in recent years. Now, here lies the key point that few are addressing. Ferrari had previously tried to recruit Horner, and now, with Fred Vasseur in his final 6 months of his contract and under increasing pressure from the Italian media, the Scuderia may finally get the opportunity it has always wanted. The Italian team finished second in the Constructors' Championship the previous year, losing by a narrow margin to McLaren, but in 2025, the situation deteriorated dramatically. What should have been a battle for the World Championship turned into a desperate fight for lower positions, with Ferrari competing only for second place against McLaren and, to a lesser extent, against Red Bull itself. This deterioration in performance has put Vasseur in the spotlight of the Italian press, which is already anticipating his departure, and created the ideal environment for Horner's arrival. The pressure at Maranello is enormous, and the Tifosi are showing growing impatience with the absence of titles that has now lasted since 2007. However, and here comes the twist that no one anticipated, Martin Brundle, former driver and one of the most respected commentators in the paddock, has identified an obstacle that could prove insurmountable for this deal. During the Sky Sports podcast, Brundle was categorical. "I believe Christian will be keen to get a stake in a team from now on. Some ownership, rather than just being a hired employee. Obviously, he won't be able to do that at Ferrari, however tempting that position may be." And Brundle's observation is not mere speculation. After building an empire at Red Bull and experiencing the power that comes with direct influence on strategic decisions, it would be understandable if Horner wanted more than just a high salary. He wants to be part of the venture, to have an active role not only in technical decisions, but also in commercial and structural ones. At Ferrari, that is simply not feasible. The Agnelli family and Stellantis maintain complete control over the operation. And it doesn't end there. Karun Chandhok was even more specific, suggesting that he could see Horner in a completely different destination, Alpine. There were numerous rumors that they had tried to sign him on several occasions. But it didn't materialize, Chandhok explained. Fred Vasseur. Lots of rumors about his future. Personally, I don't believe he will go there. But then Chandhok revealed some surprising information. Could he end up at Alpine? In terms of his personal life, he could keep his residence in the UK. Does he want to move his children? Does he want to change his whole life? Probably not. Alpine is still based in that Oxfordshire Valley, or motor racing valley here in the UK, and they are looking for a team principal. The scenario becomes even more intriguing when we consider that Alpine has hired Steve Nielsen as executive director, a former acquaintance of Horner, and has Flavio Briatore as executive advisor, another name who has collaborated with the Briton in the past. Could this be the perfect strategy for Horner? A team in need of leadership, located in the UK, with people he knows and trusts? Alpine represents a totally different project from Ferrari. While Scuderia carries the weight of decades of tradition and sky-high expectations, Alpine is a team in rebuilding mode, with less external pressure but also considerable technical and financial challenges. For Horner, this could represent an opportunity to repeat what he achieved at Red Bull, taking a struggling team and turning it into a powerhouse. But let's look at the situation objectively. Ferrari offers prestige, history, and the chance to work with the most iconic brand in world motorsport. However, as Brundle pointed out, Horner would not get any shareholding. He would just be another employee in a traditionally hierarchical and politically complex structure. Alpine, on the other hand, represents a rebuilding project with less initial pressure, but also with fewer resources and tradition. And here is another element that further complicates this equation. The market for team bosses in Formula One has never been so busy. In addition to the situation at Ferrari and Alpine, other teams may be interested in Horner. Aston Martin, for example, has invested heavily in infrastructure and may be interested in a big name to lead the project. Williams itself, which has been showing signs of recovery, could benefit enormously from Horner's experience. The financial aspect cannot be overlooked either. Horner, with his track record of success, will certainly demand an astronomical salary, but the issue goes far beyond money. It is about legacy, decision-making power, and control over one's own destiny. At Red Bull, he had complete autonomy to shape the team according to his vision. Would he accept giving that up for any amount of money? What makes this situation even more fascinating is the timing. Horner, at 51, is at the peak of his career as a team principal. He has proven that he can take a struggling team and turn it into a world champion. The question is, does he want the challenge of repeating that feat? Or does he prefer the stability and control that a stake in the company can provide? The answer to that question could define not only Horner's future, but also the direction of at least two teams in Formula One. If he chooses Ferrari, he will be betting everything on his ability to revolutionize the most traditional team in the sport. If he opts for Alpine, he will be building a project from scratch, with more freedom, but also more risks. What do you think will happen? Will Horner accept the challenge of trying to return Ferrari to the top, even without a stake in the company, or will he choose Alpine and the security of working close to home, with friends, and the possibility of having more control over the project? Leave your opinion in the comments, because this decision could completely change the balance of power in Formula One in the coming years. And since we're talking about changes that could shake up the paddock, click on the video appearing on your screen, because there I'll tell you about another bombshell that could explode behind the scenes of Formula One and leave you even more impressed with the power games that take place away from the track.